hello, and welcome to A Woman's Heart. We are in for a treat today. We are looking forward to having Carol McCracken with us, and thanks so much for joining us today, Carol.
You're welcome. I'm so glad to be here. Thanks for inviting me, Lisa.
You are very welcome. We met last year at a retreat and started talking, and we went, oh, this would be great. I would love to have you on to be able to share your story, which we are going to get a little deeper into in a little bit. But right now, just briefly, I would love for us to get to know you a little better. Let my audience get to know you. So share a little bit about yourself and something fun that isn't normally in your bio.
Interesting. Okay. Well, I am currently a pastor at my church. I have women's ministry, hospitality, that kind of thing. I came to it by a small wedding business that I had. And that's where I got a lot of the hospitality aspect of it. I
Yeah.
have learned a whole bunch in my life because it was a life that was pretty boring, if you will. And
Okay.
then things started happening in my life, having a son, having an addiction,
Mm.
having a divorce, and some redemption rather, all stirred up in there.
Wow. Wow. Very good. And well, other than the wedding business, I guess, is there anything else fun that isn't normally in your bio?
Let's see here. Let's see. Always, I always ask other people, and it's much easier for me to ask the other people on my podcast. But let's see, something fun. I'm getting ready to go tomorrow to a mission trip in Spain. How's that?
Oh, wonderful. Wonderful. That sounds exciting. And I wish you the best in the safe
Thanks.
travels. That is one of the countries I have not made it to yet, but I do want to. We hosted an exchange student from Spain. So one of these days I want to go see her over there in Spain. So that'll be beautiful.
It seems to be.
Yes, yes, it is. Well, as we mentioned before, we started recording. You said your fuller story is actually probably even more strange than fiction. So I would love for us to dive into that. And actually, before we do that, I do want to remember to ask. This is something that I've tried to start doing at early on. Is what are you hoping people will get from our conversation? If they keep listening to this whole thing, what are you hoping that people are going to get from our conversation today?
You're never done. The Lord has a plan for you no matter what. If you veer off the path, He's right there with you, getting you back on that path because He has equipped you for a reason and just to hang on because sometimes based on what you learn on the way makes you minister better to others.
Very good. Very good. Well, and that knowledge and that wisdom has been hard fought. As
Yeah.
you have indicated, you just briefly touched on life was boring and then it was not.
Yeah.
So share a little bit more about your story and how all of that came about.
Well, I came up and I've always I I cannot remember a moment when I didn't have Jesus in my life. As a very young child, I felt an affinity to him. And I always I thought I knew everything in my immaturity. So one day I spoke to this girl and she told me there's a talking donkey in the Bible. And I shot her down right there because I knew everything you understand as a young person. And just to prove how wrong she was, I went home and I looked it up. Don't you know there was a talking donkey in the Bible?
Yes. I was gonna
So
say, she was right.
I had to eat my words with a little salt and pepper, but that was kind of a watershed moment in my direction that I became a Bible study teacher at that point and studied for it and went further on because God humbled me into there's so much more than I will ever know. So I love that, went on and just continued to develop my career in that vein. And then life started getting hard. I had a great marriage. It was wonderful. 8 years into the marriage, we had a son, and he became special needs.
Mm.
And it was all good. Love him dearly, but even he would admit that he was very hard to raise because we didn't understand what was going on. There's no book written with the
Yeah.
syndrome he has. He's got a little bit of Asperger's syndrome. He's got a mood disorder in which he cycles up and down really quick. He's got ADHD and he has Tourette's. And so all of those four things in puberty to match. And it was just, I will tell you, it was very scary.
Hmm.
And so we decided what we would do. We would just get, if we get home and it's like, okay, we just need a glass of wine or a beer. We just wanted to quit feeling for just a moment.
Yeah.
And we ended up numbing too much. And we both had problems with alcohol.
Mm.
And it became one where my son really needed more stability. And we were fighting and just it was a very bad situation that I never thought, particularly as a Bible study teacher, you don't think you're going to find yourself in. I didn't want to share any of my baggage because I had an unrealistic image. I'm strong. I will power through. I will get through this. And so we ended up divorcing. I don't believe in divorce. I really don't even believe in divorce yet. Here I am finding, okay, I didn't start out to be addicted to anything, didn't think I would ever divorce, and I was just in a mess. And it just, how do you deal with the mess when you're right in the middle of it? And
Yeah.
it's just really hard if you rely on yourself to try to get out of your own mess.
Yeah, yeah, it really is. And when you are, as you mentioned, it's one thing when you have a little bit of distance, that whole hindsight thing, but when you're in the middle of it, it's so hard to see out of it. And I can only imagine all of the thoughts, the embarrassment of not wanting to tell anybody, because here, as you said, you're a Bible teacher, you're at church, you love Jesus, and then people that love Jesus aren't supposed to have these problems. Well, we know that that's not true, and yet we still are somewhat surprised when we discover that that's not true. It kind of knocks us for a loop. And fortunately, that's not where your story ended. So we are so fortunate that you were able to overcome. And what were some of those things that you did and that God taught you as He was kind of making a message out of that mess and bringing you through that? And I suspect it took a little while to get through all that too.
It did. It was not a quick thing. It was, I finally culminated in my small town. I went to go get some wine and I was not driving like I should have been. So I pulled over to the side of the road. Next thing you know, there are some blue lights behind my car. It is exactly what I needed, but you could not have told me that at the time because at that point I realized I could have hurt somebody. This is out of control. My judgment is impaired.
Yeah.
And so I said, Jesus, this, do what you will. I can't do this anymore. And there was a literal come to Jesus moment that I felt in my spirit. And I just sensed Jesus going, okay, we've tried all this your way. What do you think about that? And I didn't think much about it. And I didn't know what to do next. So I just literally surrendered. I'm like, I can't do it. I've messed it up. You've got to help me. I do not even know what to do next.
Yeah.
So the next day, God, He led me to a person that I saw at my church one time going to AA.
Mm.
Said, will you just help me out with this? I don't even know what to do. And so she said, of course I will. And she said, but I'm going to take you to a different group that's a little less gritty because I know you. She looked out for me. Even in that, she was gentle and she was kind. And I was so embarrassed. I don't even know what I expected, but I sat there in that parking lot and just wept and wept. And I didn't know it was surrender at the time.
Yeah.
And so I went in and I worked very hard for at least a year doing that. And so God took away my addiction. It's one of those things that I have to be very careful about, because I know I can't start. I put out a lot of accountability so that if
Yeah.
anybody were to see me with anything, they would know that something's wrong. And I did that on purpose. But for all the struggle I had trying to give it up, God took it away. And I know that doesn't happen with everybody all the time, but
Yeah.
I was blessed with that so that I could go on to take care of other things,
Hmm.
like, for example.
Yeah.
And My son continues to make some bad choices, and I had to meet with my ex-husband one day and go over that. And we just sat in the restaurant and cried because we hadn't seen each other in such a long time. And
Wow.
we both had this son in common that we both loved more than anything.
Hmm.
And so we kind of came together and it wasn't so bad. And then we started being friends. And then it was kind of nice. And then he asked me to marry him again. And I said, okay.
Oh, wow. I love that. I love that it was in, and I would hope, and you, well, I would hope, and you can confirm this, having gone through what you went through, then being
Yes.
apart and having to work on yourself, and he probably had to work on himself, and then coming back together. How was that? I know that Jill and Mark Savage went through a split. They call it a 2.0 marriage. So there was their marriage 1.0 and their marriage 2.0. So what were some of those lessons that you really learned that have made perhaps the 2.0 version of your marriage even better?
Well, first of all, there's some validation that I wasn't stupid enough to say yes the first time. I really was meant to say yes the first time because there was something good in it. I didn't make a mistake. And even my husband will tell you we needed to be apart. There was so much stress that we were not thinking correctly, and we both wanted good, but we both went about it in different ways that opposed one another.
Okay.
We work to do to mature ourselves. The distance is what we needed. We needed to be away from the stress, and we needed some professional help, some counseling
Mm-hmm.
to guide us back where we needed to be, where we couldn't get ourselves because there was too much in the way.
Yeah. Yeah.
And now we're friends. Before we were raising a child trying to get through this thing, we both believed in it. We don't believe in divorce. And we thought, this is it. This is what we're going to do for the rest of our lives. But we were tearing each other up.
Yeah, I imagine so. And I love that you can recognize that you needed that distance. And hopefully not everybody has to get divorced and be apart for a long time before they can work things out. But I will say when I was younger, I didn't understand how people could get divorced years and years and years later. And now I've been married over 30 years and I go, now I know why. And because as much as I have a wonderful husband and we've stayed married, there are definitely times when things that worked in one season of your life or your marriage don't necessarily work in the next season. And you have to always continually work on yourself and work on your marriage. And it's hard work. It can be hard work. It's not just the happily ever after that you go riding off into the sunset and everything is sunshine and roses. So I don't know of too many people who've been married a very long time who have not gone through a difficult period where, in your case, divorced, came back, or some sort of a distance or some sort of hurdle that they had to overcome to then keep going.
Well, it's one of those things. Sometimes if you marry young like I did, you're very immature in it. I was very selfish. I can see looking back, I had some maturing to do. So, you don't see that again. When you're in the middle of that, you don't see it. You're
Yeah.
doing the best that you can.
Hmm.
But sometimes you need to do work for the marriage, which is work on yourself.
Yeah, yeah. And I know, when you're in that stress, I've done just enough to be dangerous on neuroscience and what that does to your brain. And you literally, when you're in the middle of that fight or flight because you're stressed or something's come up, your brain is not really thinking clearly. It really isn't. It like doesn't even have blood flow to the front of your brain where your logic center is. So when they say you're not thinking clearly, you really aren't. And you have to be able to pull back and ground yourself and calm down and breathe deep, as we were laughing about earlier, in the middle of the stressful, so that you can think more clearly. And so that's just, it's very difficult to learn when you're in the middle of it. But yeah, the stress, and that was a lot of stress with your son and
And there's a
everything else.
therapy term, and it's called emotional resilience. And the
Oh,
way to look at it is, say you're on a bridge and you're standing on a bridge, somebody throws you a 60-pound weight. Okay, you can hold that for a little while. That's like your circumstances that you're going through at a
yeah.
time. Okay, then somebody says, "Oh, wait, there's more. Here's another 60-pound weight, but you have not released the first one. So it's doubled, and
Mm,
you're carrying it, and you're carrying it, and you're carrying it." Then they throw more on top of you. There's only so much that that foundational bridge will hold because if you've
yeah,
got to have a sustained amount of different kind of stress, you're going to crash through that bridge, which is just simply a picture of you can handle only so much
yeah.
at one time by
Mhm.
yourself.
Yeah, yeah, you can. And that's where the professional help community, Jesus, all of that comes together to help you distribute the weight. Either you give it up, let it go, delegate it, whatever else. And one of the other things that I love about your story is the redemption side. And that I mentioned to you is I think so many times, especially I think everyone has done it at some point, but I just tend to think that women tend to do it a little bit more. Is that we go through circumstances like this, or maybe we don't go through those, we go through different circumstances, and we discount or minimize the impact and the influence that our voice and our story can have for good and for other people. And I would love for you to talk a little bit about why do we do that? And then what are ways that we can remember that all of that stuff is so important that it doesn't matter, as you mentioned, it doesn't matter what we've gone through. We still have a voice. We still matter, and God uses that in such a powerful way.
Well, first of all, we're in a broken world. So life is hard, no matter what.
Yeah.
And the Lord has given us a purpose and there's a plan. And you can stay all the theological way that you want to, but the Lord has given you, if there's breath in your lungs, you have a plan. But when life is really hard sometimes, it's hard to see that and you don't think that your voice matters. To God, it does, but to you, there's an issue where you don't feel worthy anymore. With all that stuff happening to me, I'm like, sure, how can God use me? I had great plans. I must have been wrong. Surely He will not use me. How can this broken, addicted, divorced woman possibly have a voice? But yet, God was refining me, and I did not understand what He was doing. He was taking some of those rough edges off, just like a piece. Maybe you've heard this before. It's like refurbishing a piece of furniture. You've
Yeah.
got to get the yuck off first before you can put the good stuff on. I think that through a lot of the stuff that I have been through, I can relate to people a lot more than I used to be able to do.
Yeah.
And so my ministry did change at that point from a compassionate point of view to the plan that I think God had all along. I was to lead women, but differently than I had thought.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
Does that
and
make
I think,
sense?
oh yeah, it really does. And I had two thoughts as you were talking, when you talking about getting the stuff off when you're refurbishing. I was thinking of the refiner's fire. And there are times when I'll just like, I've got some scorch marks on parts of my body where God has turned up the heat and brought those
Yeah.
impurities to the surface so he can skim them off. And I will still giggle when Joyce Meyer will say that, when you squeeze something, she said there was a whole lot of other stuff that came out before patience did. So that thing of being heated up, and also just how he uses that when we go through things, I think we do have, it's not so much a sympathy, but an empathy and a compassion. And I tell people the older I get, the fewer stones I throw, because you just don't know everything that's been in someone's background, and we can look and go, why in the world did they do that? Well, we don't know the whole story. And so I've learned to be a lot more compassionate and understanding, and less quickly to throw a stone and judge, because I just don't know everything that someone's been through. And even if it doesn't look as polished as some people may like, we may not know everything. The fact that they are where they are is a miracle in and of itself. And God can so easily use that. And I love how he brings that around. Along those lines, as I mentioned, I do believe that God has placed something precious and powerful in every woman's heart. And sometimes we need a little bit of encouragement. So, what would you say to encourage someone to pursue that passion that God has placed in their heart?
Oh my goodness, whatever happens, just stick it out. Stick it out. It may not be fun in the moment, but there is purpose, and it all depends on where you are in the journey. It may be a little thing, it may be a big thing, but God has got you there for a reason. He's given you gifts and He has equipped you to do this thing that He has called you to do. And if you stick with it, you can see the fruit of what he wanted you to do. He allows you to go through experiences for a reason, whether it's to teach you something, to strengthen you, to turn you back onto the path. But he allows things to happen to shape you into this thing that he wants you to be. And this is a journey that we're going to be going on our entire lives. And so you might as well just accept it and work with him on it and stay on the path that he wants you to be. He's giving you tools, community, prayer. Just don't take it all upon yourself. Do not isolate. Community is one of the most important things that you can have, particularly a community that loves Jesus. It will help you. Trust me on this.
Yes, amen. Well, if somebody is interested in connecting with you, because you have two different podcasts, you have a book, you have speaking, there's so many other resources and things you have to offer. Let us know what your podcasts are and where people can connect with you.
Yes, the first one is Faith Over Fear. I co-host with Jennifer Slattery, and a lot of times what we want to do on that, we deal with things like anxiety, people that have been through something. We have a lot of really cool guests on that, experts, that have been through things. And the second one is Your Daily Bible Verse. There's a team of six of us, and we each have a day where we take a Bible verse and then we apply it to how you might use that in your life with a little bit of teaching. I do have a book out. It's about wisdom. If you're interested in that, you can get it on Amazon. I am on Christian Mix 106 with a daily inspiration. And you can find all of that if you go to my website, carolmccracken.com.
Okay, very good. Well, we will put that in the show notes so that people can find your podcast, your book view, and all that other stuff. And Carol, thank you so much for being willing to share your story with everyone and being open about that, and then being obedient and working with God to help others find the redemption in their story. So I truly appreciate the work that you've done to be able to help other people. And I am so blessed that you were able to join us today.
Thank you for inviting me. It's been a pleasure to be here and to see your pretty face again.